Well, hey there, you're on the internet, I have some free time again, and welcome to the Triple N Network, where all you newbie noob nerds can find all the news you'll need. Let's look at an ink today, shall we? Now, today's ink I have in sample form, but from probably the only pen friend I have in real life. So as part of the Diamine 150th anniversary series, this one is Regency Blue. It is a... well, that's worrisome. It is purpley. A little bit. It's got that sort of like dark royal bluish purple thing going on, which makes sense because, you know, Regency. And so let's get to it, shall we? Now, two pens I used were these. You'll probably recognize them. This is a, wow, that's really on there. This is a Pilot Plumix with sort of the standard little stub nib that comes with it. And this is a JinHao X450. Now, I love my X450s because pretty much all of mine tend to be pretty broad and pretty wet, and this one certainly was. I think this has Sailor Gentle Blue Black in it right now, though, so, yeah. Alright, let's look at some comparisons, shall we? Now, here is Diamine's 150th Anniversary Regency Blue, and here is Diamine's 150th Anniversary 1864 Blue Black. Yes, these two actually are fairly similar. One's just much darker. They both have definite hints of purple. Next up is, and now I would just like to say, I now have about 650 different samples, and I go through every single one of them to find the four closest, and these are the four closest. Private Reserve Ebony Purple. This one is a little bit more red and a little bit darker in some spots. Next up is Noodlers for Wonder Pens of Canada, Blue Upon the Plains of Abraham. I love this ink. This ink is fascinating. It's blue with strawberry ice cream pink sort of sitting on top of it, which gives it a purpley kind of effect. And Noodlers Kung De Chang. I'm probably terribly mispronouncing that. I think it's actually more like Kung De Chin. Chang? Chang? God, sorry. My best friend who does speak Chinese and speaks it beautifully is away right now and hard to get on the phone. So, yes, if you're familiar with this ink, it is fairly purpley. This ink is honestly closer to my purples than it was to my blues. So, yeah. But the camera's turning it very, very blue. I may have to correct that in post. Oh dear. Alright, bear with me while I zoom in. Alright, so here's our chromatography. Now the way I do this is generally I put a line of ink and then instantly drop this one in water. And then when this whole thing is dry, which usually takes about 8 to 10 minutes, I then dunk this one. Now that's not how you're supposed to do it. You're not supposed to let them dry. However, over the years I feel like it's taught me a fair bit. So let's begin with the normal one. You can see where that initial line was. It's kind of sort of a dark gray, but, you know, only like a hazy little bits of it. Now, the camera is affecting this greatly. This is a very wine purple color all through here. And then we get a very, what I would call, you know, like the more traditional royal blue up through here. And there's an extremely thin, dark line up at the top. Now the one that I let dry is largely the same, except that down here it's actually almost lighter. It's like a pink color, and there's sort of more blank space, and then we get blue up at the top. So I can't explain that, but there you go. Chemical tests. Yep. Water really got it moving. Just for the record, Diamine isn't one of those brands that really chases after that waterproof market. But people forget that when inks are water soluble, it means they're very easy to clean out of your pens with water. Now, as you might be able to tell, both from this swatch, now this is 30-pound all cotton paper, and so that makes it fairly absorbent, which means it's fairly hard to get it to sheen. And yet here we do up at the top. And we actually get it all through here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it on camera. That's a bad omen. But yeah, all through here, the darkest parts, we get this sort of red and gold sheen. But yeah, so it is heavily saturated, so the water was washing it away, but it was also spreading it around a little bit. 1/3 bleach solution, as you might be able to tell, broke up some of it, but also caused a reaction that caused it to turn a intense light blue color, and it dyed the page. Ammonia pen flush got it moving, but then sort of seemed to affect the paper and caused it to sink in. Very similar with hydrogen peroxide. Yeah, so, and for the record, I do not endorse the idea of cleaning out your pen with hydrogen peroxide, ever. Yeah, paper test. Top down to density, Clairefontaine, 90 grams per square meter. I actually quite enjoyed this ink. Yeah. It was barely on the wet side. It was 5.5 out of 10. It has intense, rich saturation. I hope this shading will come through. So if you're like me and you like shading, I know not everyone does, but I get so excited about it. Sometimes I forget other people don't. Because I'm self-involved like that. As you might be able to tell, come on camera, calm down. We get a halo effect where we get this dark outline around the wettest parts. Turns almost black. Oh, there we go, thank goodness. You can see in the scrubby there's plenty of sheen, and I just want you to imagine in all the places, so like the cross of the X, yeah, oh, you can kind of see it. Yeah, there's a little bit of sheen everywhere, which is very nice. I like that. Now, the Plumix took 12 seconds to dry, and that fairly broad and wet JinHao X450 took 20. And I just want to show you the density of color in this smear. It is richly, richly saturated. Now, in the areas, in some places where it's laid on particularly thick, and it might be the effect of this red sheen, it does make it look a bit purple. However, it's not exclusively just in the dark parts. There is a purpliness to it. Now, water test. Yeah, it's not the most water resistant of inks, but as you can probably tell, what little hints there are left behind, it's sort of that wine purple sort of color. Yeah. Next up is Fabriano Echo. It's an 85 gram per square meter paper. Honestly, I love this stuff. The more I use it, the more I enjoy it. Yep. It's pretty on here. We get great shading. We get a very intense halo sheen all throughout. We get it in the words too. I don't know if it's going to show up. Oh yeah, you can see it. So that's a nice effect. Again, you can see the hints of purple, but you can also see it in the thinner areas as well. Just lovely, lovely shading. Nice effect. The Plumix little stub took 13 seconds to dry. Fairly broad and wet JinHao took 21. Again, just look at, if my camera will calm down, the density of color in that smear. It is a richly saturated ink. However, I didn't find it that hard to clean out of my pens. I just used a bulb syringe and water, and one bulb syringe cleaned out both pens. So I guess, you know, half a bulb syringe each did just fine. Yeah, so really intense saturation. Would you call this sheen red or gold? Because sometimes I feel like it vacillates between the two. Anyways, extremely well behaved. Same on here. Clairefontaine had no bleed, no feather, no spread. Fabriano, no bleed, no feather, no spread. I don't think there's any echo either. Maybe in the scrubby, but that was me laying it on really thick to make sure I could get some sheen on camera. I don't think there's any, definitely no echo here, especially because the quadrilateral printing really helps hide it a little bit. It did dye the page. That is something that this will do because it is so saturated that once it dries, you know, and then you add water, essentially you're rehydrating the ink. So yeah, it will dye the page, and then it will leave. As you can see, it's really, really gone. There's just little hints of things left behind. So you'd be able to tell maybe that there's something there, but you would have a hard time trying to read it. Next up is Rhodia, 80 grams per square meter. I feel like we're probably all fairly familiar with this stuff at this point. Yep. You guys, if you're familiar with my videos, you know that one of my pet peeves is I hate being able to see the lines of quadrilateral paper through ink. That is definitely not a problem here. It is a richly saturated ink. You are not going to have that problem. I have a very hard time writing in a straight line, and sometimes dots aren't a rigorous enough guide. So I prefer quadrilateral paper. So I hate, I hate afterwards being distracted by the lines. But anyways, moving on. That small Plumix, 12 seconds to dry. That Fairly Broad and Wet JinHao 19. Again, wonderful shading. Again, lots of sheen, and you get it in the words too. Just really well behaved. Again, dyed the page. No bleed, no feather, no spread, no echo. Again, the quad might be helping that a bit, but even still, yeah. No, you can't see it. No. Yay! Anyways, water test. It's a mess and largely gone. Now, you might be able to tell that down here more remains, but if we bring this in, you see how that's starting to feather? That's because this comes from the bottom of a number 38 Rhodia block. Now, what is a number 38? It's essentially 2 A4s attached. So, yeah, I get about 8 sheets this size. Or is it more? Out of one piece of 38 paper. The thing is, it takes a long time to go through that much ink. I essentially use it as a blotter on my desk. And this is the edge of a large page, so it's been affected by the environment. It's been, for lack of a better word, oxidized. So that's bad aging. That's not, yeah. Anyways, Tomoe River paper. It's known for drawing out shading and sheen in dry times and echo. And yeah, we got pretty much all of that right there. So here, I don't know if it's the cream color of the paper, but I feel like it's bringing out some of the purpliness. Anyways, not that that's a bad thing. I don't dislike purple. I just wanted to point it out because the camera's not really showing it. I'm definitely gonna have to try and fix that in post. Now, yeah, the X450, just because it puts down so much ink, we get so much sheen in the writing. But yeah, yeah, intense saturation, lots of sheen, lots of shading, very dense color. Stub took 15 seconds to dry. The X450 took 24. I was expecting more of a jump just because, in dry times, just because it's so saturated, but I'm glad it didn't. Of course, since it's Tomoe River, there's no bleeding, no feathering, no spread. There is some very near show through in this scrubby, but if you'll see, that's from the X450, and I was laying it on really thick to ensure I'd have enough sheen to get on camera. That is human error. Yeah, there is some echo. Why? Because this is 52 gram per meter paper. This is extremely thin. It is very, very thin, and this is a very dark ink. It is very saturated, and so especially if you put it on a white background, you are going to be able to see it. I feel like that's logical. You know, it's very dark ink, very thin paper. But yeah, water test. This paper is known for letting ink just slide away when you add more water. Yeah, that's what we got pretty much. It's pretty much gone. Dyed the page, but when I sopped up the water, it took most of the ink with it as well, so it didn't dye it much. And there's just the littlest hints. And honestly, I feel like if I had just like agitated the water a little bit more, that would probably be gone. Also, just want you to see this. Do you see that? That is not feathering. That is smearing. Now, if your hands are damp, even the littlest bit, or if you breathe too close to the page and then touch it, all of this sheen will turn back into smudge. So handle with care. Alright, next 3 papers. I only use the Plumix with the little stub to write the test, but I use the X450 to write the name. Now, this is the world's worst copier paper. I can pretty much guarantee you have something, if not a step above this, then several. But yeah, we got an intense amount of spread. So these 2 lines here are the stub, and yep, we got some spread. We have no shading at all. We still have just a littlest hint of purple. It was absorbed almost instantly into the paper. We have lots of feathering. We have a woolly texture, but that can happen with absorbent papers. It's still intensely richly colored and dark and well saturated. You can tell that even on the more absorbent papers. We do have a lot of show through. You can see that there's definitely stuff going on the other side. There are dots where essentially made it to the back, but I don't think it ever got onto the page below. So that's always nice. And this water test is something else. It really dyed the page. It absolutely feathered and exploded. And as you might be able to tell from these lines, and even from these lines up here, these little like, yeah, this paper tried to turn into chromatography paper. It tried to suck the water further up into the pores of the paper and try and drag it up the page, and I had to sop it up fairly quickly. Yeah, that's just how crappy this paper is. That is very hard to read. I feel like I'm wearing my grandmother's bifocals or something. Like, this is just... oh, it's like giving me a headache. It's gone terribly blurry. That would be the complete opposite of fun to try and recover. My camera once again decided to spontaneously stop recording. So here we are. This is Mead. Legit Mead. This is the kind that comes out of a spiral notebook, not a lab notebook. And that means this stuff has been feathering like crazy if you're familiar with it. Because, yeah. Anyways, we don't get nearly as much spread as we did on the 20 pound, which is nice. We still don't really have any shading. It took 1.5 seconds to dry. But yeah, we do get those feathers. We do get a wooliness, but we do have this. Despite the fact that this is actually physically thinner than 20 pound paper, we don't get as much coming through. And I am about to sneeze, so excuse me. We do get a little bit of bleed, but again, that's the scrubby. That was me laying it on. Sorry, I may have to edit that out. Anyways, yeah, it overall did fairly well. There wasn't much spread. There's no full bleed. There is a little echo. We have some feathering. We do have a bit of woolliness. But considering this is Mead and this is a richly saturated ink and it's mildly on the wet side, could be worse. But because it's Mead paper, it is going to freak the heck out when you add water. It literally looks like 2 little bombs went off. Yep, and it looks like it's on fire using propane or propane accessories. Yep. That would not be fun to try and recover. That looks like a cactus monster. Anyways, lastly, Moleskine. Hate it. It's my nemesis. It's terrible. Could have been worse. Honestly, I think it was the flat edge of the stub that was helping this just a little bit. But even still, yeah, it's not great. We got feathering. We've got a woolliness. Come on, camera. It's not ideal. But it could have been worse, because as you can see, there's not a ton of spread. Could be worse. It took 5 seconds to dry. It's still a richly saturated color. Yeah. You do have bleed, though. Lots of it. Now, of course, the X450 is going to be just flying through there like a coffee filter. But, yeah, we do have it even in the Plumix. And that rendered onto the page below, because as you'll see, like where those dots are, they are very dark. So that's unfortunate. And the water test is, well, it possesses a type of reason that is unknown to us mortals of Earth. I don't know why it does that, but it is a mess and it's awful. Yay! I love ending on Moleskine. Anyway, so there you go. There is Diamine's 150th anniversary Regency Blue. It is a wonderfully rich and saturated ink. It shades beautifully. It's got hints of purple. It's got sheen everywhere. Not the most waterproof ink. But honestly, can't complain. I had 5 milliliters and now I have 3 and change because I have used it more than once. Which for me is saying something because I love trying new inks. But yeah, so there you go for your consideration from the Triple N Network. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe to the channel. And thanks for watching. Bye.